Hello, everyone. I'm Rhonda Miller. I'm coming to you today to talk about some updates and things we might want to consider about changing our plans. Many of you are my longtime clients, and some of you are new to my practice because you worked with Mary Ellen Bowman, who is now retired. I look forward to talking with all of you, and I'm very excited to be helping out Mary Ellen in the capacity of taking over her clients. I found that she and I are very much alike in how we like to treat our clients. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest. My guest is Sharon Ritchey. Sharon has been a long-time client of mine, and she's also referred many clients to me over the years. So she's here today to help ask some questions that perhaps many of you have the same questions, and hopefully we'll get them answered.
Hi, Rhonda. Thank you so much for having me today. I just want to let everybody know that I met Rhonda over 20 years ago when I was starting my company, Home Row Editorial, and our children have grown up together. And Rhonda has been the one person that we call whenever we've had life changes, whether we've bought property, whether we've had deaths in the family. Time and again, Rhonda is the person who doesn't solve our problems, she prevents them from happening. And we have sent, I don't know, countless people to Rhonda, and it's usually people who have interesting lives, people who own property in multiple states or have blended families or have something just a little bit more out of the ordinary, but more ordinary that we have in life today, whereas people don't tend to move along. So this is a really great time for me to kind of grab you and ask the questions that I know a lot of people are asking. So thank you for having me on and kind of having this chance to ask these questions that we're asking here in my business. And as my husband and I are looking towards retirement and our children have grown, we have so many things that are changing. One of the biggest changes and questions that we have right now is since the change in administration and the government, it's impossible not to read the news every day and not watch the stock market go up and down and our retirement savings go up and down and the real estate market going up and down and sort of holding our breath about federal taxes and state taxes. Can you do your magic and kind of talk me off the wall and tell me, what sort of may be coming and the things that we maybe want to think about?
So for 2025, we still have 1 year left of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and that's not going to change. Nothing they do is going to change this year. What they're going to do is change things for the upcoming years. If no change is reached, no agreement is reached, we will go back to the Obama level of tax that we'll have. It will just go back to pre-TCJA. But I think they're likely to come up with a solution. The problem is it's going to be a nail-biting year because I don't think they're going to reach the solution quickly or easily. And we're all going to sort of know what next year is going to have. The last time President Trump was in office, they did not reach a tax plan until the 22nd of December of his first year in office. So I think we're looking at something like that again. But there are a few things that you need to know that happened last year. At the very end of last year, the IRS was quite busy issuing some revenue rulings, and some of them were a little troublesome to those of us who practice this area of law because they did not say on this day forward, they actually just said this is the new law and it applies to all of these types of trust. And so the one thing I want to ask you right now is if you have trust written by whomever, if it is irrevocable, that means it cannot be changed. And there's all sorts of irrevocable trust, but not everybody has one. So your trust might say the word family on it or revocable. That's not what we're talking about. If it's an irrevocable trust and either yourself or your spouse is the person who is paying the taxes on that trust, I highly recommend that you immediately call an attorney and have them look it over, because now you can have an inadvertent gift tax situation to your beneficiaries. And nobody wants that to happen after we've done all this work setting up the trust.
So that's like an oopsie for us and our paperwork. So and everybody's paperwork, obviously, and their trusts are a little different. What are the sort of milestone moments that say you really should have your documents taken a look at? And it could be that you review the documents and say everything is great, but what are some of those you need to take a look at this now, or rather, Rhonda needs to take a look at this now?
So these documents are really not meant to be written back in 2000, I'm sorry, 1996, and then just for the rest of the time be valid, because both state law changes and federal law changes. There are always improvements and some things that may not be, but so does your life. We have children, our children get older. The provisions that we write for our young children are certainly not the same that we would write for our older children. We might have a death of a spouse. We might inherit money from someone else. We might have a divorce. We could have a new marriage. All of these types of things should trigger a, let's call Rhonda moment, because those are the times when your life absolutely is telling you you need to change your document. And if you don't, what happens is upon your death, you have an ill-fitting document, and it usually leads to tax issues and a lot of headaches for your beneficiaries. And we didn't draft these documents to give someone a headache. We drafted them to make things easier.
Are there instances where the changes that you're going to make are going to be only at the state level and not the federal level, meaning that not the entire document has to be redone again, but that, a quick change could be made depending on property or sales or things like that are happening?
So if your document is fairly recent and you're changing your trustees, for example, that usually does not require an entire change to a document. Unfortunately, if you're changing your agents under a power of attorney, that always requires a change of a document, because it is not allowed to merely do an amendment to those documents. They just have to be redone. All states are quite careful with those types of documents so that there's no questions. But there are things that have happened in both the states and in the federal government, I would say in the last 5 years, and some of these changes are really good. The IRS did their Paperwork Reduction Act. They also wanted to make things easier between spouses to trade back and forth that tax exemption. But you need the language in your documents. It's called portability. And you need your document written with portability inside of it. And believe it or not, I think the name kind of suits what you're doing, because you're making something portable from one spouse, from the deceased spouse to the surviving spouse. And then on the state level, Virginia has been busy. And I can't blame Virginia. There's a uniform committee that goes around, and their job is to try to get every state to have a version of the same law, if not the exact same law. And the reason for this is because we're much more mobile. We move from state to state. We buy properties in other states. And what's been happening is you go to use a power of attorney, let's say in Texas, not trying to pick on Texas, but let's say we do. The people trying to look at this power of attorney go, well, this looks nothing like our power of attorney. We can't honor this. And I've had this situation where my client was in critical condition in the hospital, and their family is calling me, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I wound up going over as many heads as I could until I finally got somebody who would listen to me and say, you have to honor it. He is a resident of Virginia, not Texas. But to avoid that, the Uniform Committee has now done a Uniform Power of Attorney Act. Virginia passed it. Most of the states have passed it. So now it looks the same. And we don't have this. We saw so many crises during the COVID situation that they really wanted to make things better. And so if your documents were written again before 2020, you really want to bring them in and have them looked at to see if they're written to the latest law.
So
because you can't say, I'm never moving from Virginia.
Right. So we're talking about power of attorneys. What other,
So you're talking about your power of attorney, your healthcare power of attorney, and believe it or not, your revocable trust, because they've done a whole bunch of work with the revocable trust to try to get that law uniform as well. There are the outlier states. California always has to do their own thing, so they don't always play well with the uniform laws, but they have a version, they have their own version. Then you have Florida, who says, yep, we'll play the game, but here are 5 extra things that you have to add. And so again, you got to ask the attorney. Most of us who practice this all the time, it's our specialty area, we know the states that are outliers. We know what we need to do to make sure your documents are compliant. And I have clients that have property in California, Florida, and here in Virginia. And then that just makes it a whole lot of fun to write something that's good in all those 3 states.
Excellent. So I know how to get a hold of you, and I send people to you all the time, but how do other people who are thinking, oh, I really need to have things taken a look at, there's been a lot of changes. What's the best way for people to find you and set up an appointment?
So I think email is always an easy way, and our emails are actually on the firm website page, so it'll be near my photo, and my name is easy to remember because it's Rhonda Miller. I got a lucky marriage there. So I'm easy to find, but you can also just call the main phone number of the law firm and ask for me, and they'll transfer you to me if I'm available and put you on my voicemail. I'm very good at getting back to people.
Yes, you are.
I look forward to speaking with you. I hope that I've given you some guidance, and many of you are paging through. Final note, there are 3 important sections every trust should have. That is a decanting section. It is the ability of the successor trustee to move the administration to a different state. And it's a really good no contest clause. And it's important that your documents have these. If you look at your document and your document says, my document can only be administered in the Commonwealth of Virginia, the state of Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, California, you want to have that fixed. Because what we need right now, more than anything else, is flexibility. I have no idea what possible changes we're going to have in the next year in tax law. I really don't. And there's been a lot of things that have been thrown about. And I don't know what part will go in and what part won't go out. But if your document is written to be flexible, I can promise you that no matter what happens to you, if you're incapacitated or you pass away, we can fix it.
That's good to know. Well, I know my documents are good because you did them.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time and attention. Thank you so much, Sharon, for being my special guest today. And I hope you all enjoyed this video and look forward to having more. This is my new way of sending a newsletter. I like to talk more than write any day. And I think this is an easy way to get things to you. So we'll be doing more of these as we have more law rolling in throughout the year.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.